All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Podventure 3, Episode 3. This is Cruisin for Coues. So far, we've talked about the vehicle that we're using to get to Arizona. We've talked about
Do you want to talk more about vehicles? No.
Yeah, Jim, you always want to talk about vehicles. We've talked about the game we're going to be pursuing, the Coues deer, possibly mule deer as well. The tag isn't either tag, so we might, it depends on what we encounter, but I think we're predominantly speculating we'll encounter Coues deer. And now we're going to talk a little bit about shooting our bows at longer distances, essentially extending our effective range. We're going to be out west.
Also working on accuracy and all those things.
The equipment itself, best practices for shooting techniques, getting your arrows set up properly. Pretty much everything that a person would want to take into consideration to shoot their bow effectively at long range, which is going to be probably something that's defined by the individual ultimately. Got Jimmy to my right. Sitting across from us, Evan Williams from Hoyt. Now, I feel like our knowing of Evan is almost like a little bit of a storied history. I met Evan for the first time. We were doing a photo shoot out in Colorado. Aaron Snyder from Kafaru was helping us out. He knew Evan. Evan was one of our models, and I think if you're watching on YouTube, you can see how damn good looking this guy is. There, I said it.
We
it's out
use
there.
that model term very, very loosely.
You know what? Because our models are legit hardcore hunters.
That's the truth.
And that's what we have across from us. Now, your brother, Jim, Lightweight Dave, actually knows Evan.
Evan's kind of one of those.
Well.
He's kind of one of those small world guys where you just get talking and then casually you bring up, and then I was out with this person, and then all of a sudden, wait, you know that person? I know that person.
Yeah.
Wait, and that person knows this person. I know that person, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
Spiderweb's out.
He used to work on your brother's bows.
Yeah, all kinds. Yeah, crazy stuff. So, Evan, welcome to the podcast. It's your first episode on here. So, first off, we got to have you intro yourself to the listeners out there. For those who haven't heard you before ever or seen you before in anything, who are you? What do you do? All that fun stuff.
So I grew up in South Central Nebraska, Northwest Kansas, got my degree in Kansas City, and that actually, with my athletic background, took me to Colorado Springs to the Olympic Training Center, where I actually started to get into the outdoor industry as a career. So I had some tech background when I was down in Mississippi. Kind of started there in a shop as a bow tech, optics salesman, rifle salesman, clothing, kind of, jack of all trades, if you will, and got the opportunity to move to Colorado and need a part-time job or two to cover expenses as an off-complex facility use athlete at the OTC. So I started working at Sportsman's Warehouse in the footwear department, picked up a part-time job at the local archery shop there in Colorado Springs, and within a couple months that turned into the potential for a full-time gig and ended up putting the athletic career away and started full-time in the industry as a sales and tech and janitorial services specialist and was there running shops for almost 8 years, and then got the call from Hoyt to come out and interview for a job within the marketing team, and started out in the PR and business development side. So I was working with freelance writers and editors within the industry, also working with our in-house marketing coordinator, getting our booths ready for all of our events and traveling and coordinating product and doing all of our product launch videos with my background in sales and the retail side with our products. And 6 months into that, our pro staff manager left for another job, and they pulled me in and said, you're kind of in a position where you know our equipment, you know a lot of our shooters. We'd like to pull you into this role with the company and kind of here's the general description of what you're going to be doing. And is this something you're interested in, or do you want to stay where you're at? And really didn't want to stay where I was at, because if you have the potential to move up, especially 6 months with a company, you take it. So I've been the pro staff manager with Hoyt Archery now for almost 4 years.
Right on.
Awesome, man.
How does that janitorial experience ever come into play anymore?
It still does from time to time, but mainly when it comes to the wife's honey-do list.
Got it. Okay. All right. That's a great thing to have on the resume.
Yeah, it really is. So turn some heads most of the time.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
That's actually the top thing on mine, Jim. I lead with that.
Oh, okay. Good.
Hey,
Is
if
that
you-
also on your Tinder profile?
Match.com.
Yep. Now, one thing we should probably note is that most of what we'll be discussing, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see Mark's, what I call PRS Bell here in front of us. It is a Hoyt, and that's probably the primary platform of discussion here today. Not that you can't increase your effective range and become accurate, more and more accurate with a trad bow like I'm using. Of course, you certainly can. But obviously, Evan's area of expertise is in these style of things. We'll probably keep more to that. So I'll just keep doing my Legolas thing over here.
Legolas.
Yeah.
Pull and pray.
So what's the best place to start when somebody is, let's say at this point we're gonna assume maybe somebody already has a bow and they've shot a little bit, sort of recreationally, just kind of for fun, plinking, if you will. I don't know if do the archers call it plinking? What do you call it?
I don't
if you're just
think
sort of
so.
plinking.
I would. Let's just go with it. Yep.
Yeah. And but now they really want to take it more seriously. They want to dive in. They want to make sure that they're shooting more accurately. And this could relate. Just before we started recording, Evan, you said something about this could relate to your average whitetail guy who doesn't really ever think they're going to be shooting much beyond 30 yards, for example. Or it could relate to somebody like who's consistently hunting out west, or somebody like us who's thinking about hunting out west, where the landscape lends itself to possibly needing to take a little bit longer poke. Of course, hopefully that you're comfortable in doing so and accurate and all those things. But where does one start? Is it in the bow setup? Is it in the practice, the regimen that what's?
Yep. So I would tell you first off is get to your local pro shop, have them look over your bow. Age of strings is going to be a major factor when it comes to stretching, things moving, making sure your bow is still within manufacturer specs. That way you're getting the most out of your equipment when it comes to speed and especially the efficiency of the design. A lot of guys tend to have a bow for 5, 6, 7 years, never change out strings and cables. So a bow like the RX3 that comes out, manufacturer specs on it are 30.5 inches axle, a 6-inch brace height. It should be shooting, in perfect world, at an ATA spec or IBO for a lot of manufacturers at 342 feet per second. If that bow is 3, 4, 5 years old, still has the original strings and cables, it's been under that load, that tension that's on the limbs for that entire life. So things do move. They don't necessarily stretch, but when you think about your cam design, the track on your cam is designed with a certain width. So let's say it's 1,000th wide, okay? Once you have your strings built and then you go and serve that material, you might have added enough serving that instead of it being 1,000th, it's 112. So it's actually thicker or wider than that track is, so we have to pinch the serving down to fully seat the string and cable into the track of our cam. Over time, as it seats, it settles and brings that bow to where it's going to live for most of its life with the quality of strings and cables out there. If you've never had it rechecked, synced, timed, whatever phrase you like to use there, then chances are your cam timing is going to be off, and so you are losing productivity or efficiency out of that system because you could have top hitting first, bottom hitting first, and I personally like to advance my top in a cam and a half system to kind of even out the load balance on the cables. But if the bottom hits first, it changes how that string is shot.
Yeah.
So therefore your knocking position could be low, could be high, depending on how that arrow is coming off the string.
This is so cool. We're talking about cams, advancing timing, knocking. This is an automotive podcast.
You might get into compound bows, Jim.
So
Man, that's pretty wild. It totally makes sense. And when you see like this bow sitting here right now, for example, I mean, everything is under tension, essentially, at this point in time.
Yep, you're under, what do we say, you have 60-pound limbs? So effectively, the way our limbs are designed is you're probably sitting between 61.5 and 62.5 pounds at static load.
Okay.
So that whole time, it's putting tension outward, which is then taking that serving into your cam. The more you shoot it, the quicker that happens because you're now increasing the potential and stored energy when you shoot. The string coming into those cams helps them seat quicker. So the quicker you shoot, the quicker that quote-unquote break-in period is for those cables to seat into your cams, the quicker you can go back to your bow shop, get it retuned and resynced, and you'll be good to go.
Oh, so so what you discussed is almost like a break-in period right off the bat after you get a new bow?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So what I typically do is when I'll put a new set of strings and cables on one of my bows, I've got a press down in my garage. I'll put it on my draw board. I'll let it sit for 12 to 24 hours just to put it under load, because when you get to full draw, you've got more load, more weight put into your cables. Your string is essentially almost slack with the way they're designed. So you can get up there and you can move it around, do things there that you wouldn't think is possible because of, well, now I'm at full draw, I'm heavier, right? Your cables are what's actually taking the majority of that load. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to settle those cables, and with today's materials and the way manufacturers are building them, I might see a 1/16 of an inch of movement in that 12 to 24 hour period. And where I'm getting new product from Hoyt typically 2 to 3 days before I leave for my November hunts, I can use that. I don't have to shoot it as long, typically within 20 shots. I'm set up. I've got broadheads rolling. I've got tape built to my max practice distance, and I'm already shooting broadheads and finalizing everything, getting ready to go a day later.
Wow.
So by doing that, are you kind of accelerating that break-in period by doing it that way?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
If you didn't have those things, how long would you say like a typical break-in period is? Or how many shots per se, maybe?
Yeah.
300 or so, I would say, roughly. So, and that, for some guys, that's 3 days. For some guys, that's 3 months. All depends on how much you're shooting.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but what I found is having that press in my garage and just being able to put it under load for a longer period of time. I can put a peep in the day after that comes off the press right away, sight in, and never have to touch that bow
Is
again.
this a specific archery press, or are you just talking about like a 10-ton like press, like a regular shot press?
I use the Last Chance Archery. They're made down in Georgia.
Okay.
So it's the one I have is one of the deluxe models, so I can actually tilt it, so I can do bow at full draw, under load, working my third axis, as well as it's got a draw board, so I can put on that press, put under load, shut my door, lock it so the kids don't go in and mess with anything. No one has to even know what's in there, and I'm good to go. So
Can we real quick go into the anatomy of a compound bow? That might be like maybe too elementary for some people, but for me, I'm thinking of like, we're talking about, obviously I know what the cams are, like I can see them visually, but there's like, you just said third axis, there's a difference between string and cable,
Correct.
which I never realized actually, to be honest with you. How does that all work? And then you have your limbs and your, which part's which?
yeah, so you have top and bottom limbs. You have your riser, which is where your grip and everything is going to mount. And then we have a 1.5 system. So we actually have string, and we have 2 different types of cables. String or shoot string is obviously where you're going to tie your peep into. It's going to be where your arrow knocks, so therefore that's where your D-loop is at.
Okay, yeah.
With the 1.5 system, we run a bus and a control cable. The control cable is going to be your harness that's going to basically connect your cams together, which is going to be this one here, which is on the outside of the bow. So it connects cam, outside to cam, underneath,
Yeah.
and then over the top.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. And then we run a split yoke or a bus system, which is going to split on your top. Okay. Hence the Y yoke. And then it's going to be the inner cable closer to the shooter. Mm-hmm. And then it's going to go down and it connects to your lower cam. So it only connects to one cam and your upper limbs. So if you have any left-right tuning issues, that's where you could do what they call yoke tuning. So depending on if you're throwing a left tear or right tear, you could potentially twist one side or the other to tune that arrow to walk out of tune. The unique thing about our Carbon Redworks lines is we also now have our custom tune grip. So the grip on this, it's a little bit thicker. You notice that at the base of it, there's an Allen screw set. Mm-hmm. If you pull that out, you can take that grip and roll it off, and there's a plate underneath there that allows us to move that grip placement 50 thousandths left or 50 thousandths right of center to also have an alternate adjustment. So if you're throwing a left or right tear, before you go to a yoke tune or before you even move your rest, and now either bump a fixed blade broadhead into your shelf or bring your vanes closer to contacting your cables, you can shift that grip first and then replace it, walk part of that tune out, and then go to cables, and then last resort, third resort, you could touch that rest if you had to.
So would the grip be your first go-to?
Grip would be my first go-to. Absolutely.
And just changing the grip can actually change how your arrows are flying?
Yep, because what it's going to do is it's going to shift that grip 50 thousandths left or right, which is going to change my input or my pressure into the system because of the angle that my hand is coming into the bow. So, and I've seen it shift it over a half inch just in that 50 thou shift.
Wow.
So we run a dealer school or a series of dealer schools every year to train our pro shop technicians and owners in the capabilities of our equipment, why we design them the way we do. And one of the dealer groups we had in last year, we had a whole section just on, okay, we're going to take this bow, and here's some arrows. We're going to have you guys shoot it, and then we're going to walk you through the new way to tune these, because it's a brand new grip system that a lot of our dealers weren't quite sure how to do it because they'd never gotten to deal with something like that. They'd have a rest option and they'd have the split yoke option. So it's okay, we're going to do a quick retraining. Here's your shot. Okay, you are throwing a 3/4 inch left tear. Before we go to a rest, because that's where most people are going to go, left tear, I'm going to shift that rest in. Well, the problem is, especially for the Western guys who are mostly going to run a fixed blade if they're doing big games such as moose or bear or elk, the closer you bring that rest in to the right for a right-handed shooter, you now bring that broadhead into your shelf. I'm a shorter draw length guy. I shoot about 28 inches. I like a shorter arrow. As I cut my arrow down, I stiffen my spine. I decrease the weight, so I gain some speed, which also brings my broadhead into my shelf completely.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, go to the grip first, 3/4 inch left tear, shifted that grip, and we almost cleaned it up just moving his grip.
And when you're talking about like a left tear, for example, you're talking about this is stuff you see when you're paper tuning, right?
Correct.
And so you would shoot an arrow into a target, and then you're finding that instead of the arrow making like a clean hole punch right through the paper, it's actually sort of shredding it a little bit to the left or to the right.
Correct. And you read it from the back end or the vane side of the arrow. So if the back end of my arrow is to the left of where my point is going through, that's a left tear. If it's on the right-hand side, it's a right tear. And then on a left tear, you can either move the grip, you can move the rest inside, or you can twist the left yoke and increase tension. And so you're actually going to take your cam from straight vertical, and I'm going to lean it into the riser, which will bring that left tear back into center.
And you could potentially still be hitting the center of the bullseye, so to speak, but having one of these left or right tears, right?
Sure, absolutely.
And what does that mean? Because I guess, like, I'm thinking, well, if I'm hitting the bullseye, what difference does it make?
So, and a lot of times what you're going to see that is with feel points.
Okay.
The arrow's going to come out, kick. There's nothing to physically steer up front. You have more vanes in the back than you have surface area for disruption up front. So your vanes are able to control and help stabilize over distance. But as you would walk that back, what you would see is arrow paradox coming into play by how those vanes are correcting. At your first initial shots at 10 yards, you might be to the right. Well, you correct that. Now I'm dead center. I go back to 20, and now I'm to the left. So I correct it a little bit more. Okay, I think I'm on. I step back to 30. Now I'm back to the left because your arrow is doing this going down range trying to correct.
Oh, okay.
So that's where walk back tuning comes into play. You basically have a straight vertical line, and my goal is to just walk back, and I'm just making small adjustments with my rest or with a tune, not necessarily my sight, to bring everything down into my line as I get further and further away.
Gotcha. So you got a vertical line on the target, maybe like a piece of tape or something like that.
Yep, blue painter's tape.
Okay.
It works perfect.
Okay.
Very interesting.
And that whole process is literally just to You're not sighting in your bow per se.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah.
Yep, because I like to do it on a 4-foot block, and I'll start at 5 feet and just make a couple adjustments. And this is after I've paper tuned. So let's say I've paper tuned and I've got a perfect bullet hole, or to my eye, it's perfect.
Yeah.
As I walk back, there can be slight impurities as to how that paper was sitting. If your tension wasn't exactly the same, or maybe there was a crease somewhere in the paper, that I can potentially have the slightest tear that your visual eye won't see. I like a 4-vein setup, so sometimes that can give a weird look. Get close, and now I'm walking back, and I'm just making slight adjustments to the rest as I'm going back and just pulling everything back to my center line.
Gotcha.
So
Do you have to get like precision paper or something like that for your paper tuning? Because I had no idea that even a crease in the paper, or slightly the way that you have tension on the paper, that could even...
the heavier you get, the less clean I typically tend to see those. Like if you go a butcher paper, you're going to create more tearing trying to get through it. So you want a little bit lighter paper, but I do believe you can go too light. If you go too light, like one thing I like to do to make sure that my veins are going to stay on my arrow is I not only do the main base, but then I tip the front and the back.
With glue.
Yeah, with glue. Because if I go through an animal, I don't want hide or bone or something to get underneath and rip a vein off. So by tipping the front and the back, I create a small barrier over the tip of that to help, especially with penetration and going all the way through and not ripping off on an animal.
Oh, okay.
Same thing with paper. If you have an edge that's sticking up on that vein, as it's going through, it could potentially grab part of that tear as the hole is exposed,
Right.
and throw off what you're physically seeing. Same thing with a bear shaft. Sometimes those are hard to read because you don't have any veins on it at all.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
So most of the time when I've done what they call bear shaft tuning, I've already shot my veins through paper. I've probably done my walk back, or I'm going straight to a bear shaft tune where I'm throwing a bear shaft and a fletched one down together, and then doing the same thing I would on a walk back tune where I'm just moving the rest a little bit back and forth just to bring those two together a little bit.
Man. This is we're only 22 minutes in. I'm already just baffled by all this
And
stuff.
we're just to paper tuning.
We're just a paper tuning. But it really is pretty amazing, because to even think about the fact that we're discussing all these things that, will increase your accuracy and precision. I mean, literally we're talking about precision at this point in time.
There's truly, when you think about it, because I know you guys have a huge segment of your market that is military, tactical, long-range shooting, stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's truly no fundamental difference between long-range rifle shooting, whether you're just an amateur out having fun, wanting to shoot 1,000 yards, or the guys that are competing in the 1,000-plus doer events and the long-range, mile-plus type events. It's the same premise with long-range bow shooting. It's all about you and your connection to your equipment. There's probably a little bit more involved on our side when it comes to the things that can go wrong or the things that you need to look out for, because we physically have more moving parts. But your arrow is no different than you sitting at home with your reloader. Okay, well, here's this grain load with this amount of point weight, and this is the speed I'm doing, and this is the group I'm shooting at 500. Okay, well, let's go an extra 10 grains of powder, and let's put an extra 50 grains up front. Okay, that dropped my muzzle velocity to this, so did this to my group, or I throw a whole new barrel on.
Yeah.
Okay, what's my twist rate?
Yeah.
Things like that. So,
yeah. But yeah, I mean, even the fact that we're discussing, and you brought up like just how much tension is being put on, like when you move the grip, tension's being pushed a little bit from your arm angle, a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. It really goes into one of the things I've heard so much about archery and bow shooting, which is consistency. Because you set all these things up, and I'd imagine it's probably really hard to set up a bow if the person shooting isn't very consistent in what they're doing, right?
Absolutely.
Because then you're just chasing a moving target, because it's like, well, we could change the bow to work when you're shooting it this way, but if you start shooting it that way, then we have to do it entirely differently.
Yep. The slightest shift in grip pressure, 1,000th of an inch, will potentially change what you're going to see coming out of that bow.
That's amazing.
So a lot of times, as a new archer coming in, when we were setting bows up, we as shop techs were shooting and tuning them. we may or may not take that consumer out and have them shoot through paper. Because if they haven't done this before, or they haven't done it in a number of years and they're getting back into it, let's just have you go out. Let's put you at 20 yards. Let's get you back into what we call shooting shape. So building that muscular endurance, building the muscle memory with, okay, this is where my anchor is. This is where my nose goes. Elbow is here. Okay, well, my shoulder is off this shot, but nope, that's correct. There's so much physicality that's built into it that those changes day to day to day out of a new archer are going to affect it. But if you are putting the time in every single day, you're going to learn your body and what's comfortable. Then you go back into that shop, and a lot of them will tell you, come back in 3 months, 6 months, whenever. Here's a card. We're going to give you free range time. Come in and use it, especially during the winter. We've got leagues. Shoot your bow a lot. Let's build you as the foundation, and then let's go back and revisit this tune. And it'll be on us. We want this to be right for you, but we need to get you and the bow working together as best as possible.
Yeah, because otherwise you end up like somebody like Mark with your old one-shot groups. I'm going to call you out here, Mark. Sorry. But
it's the shot that counts, Jim.
It's the shot that counts. Well, hey, in real world, yes, I agree.
But one cold shot every day, that's all you get.
But, if you are, we always talk about like the 3-shot group when you're zeroing in a rifle. It's similar case in that, if you go and you take one shot and you're like, well, I was aiming at the bullseye, but, I ended up hitting a little bit low and left. I'll just adjust up and right real quick. And then you shoot again, and then now your impact is high and left. And you're like, oh, crap, that's weird. Okay, let me move down and right. And then you shoot again. It's like, wait, now I'm way down and to the right. So it's like, I got to go back up and left again. If you're just doing that, you can't tell if it's you, if it's the gun, if it's, the ammo, if it's whatever.
The wind, directions.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
When you actually set up some form of consistency, whether it's you as the shooter or your equipment or something like that, that's happening consistently, then even if you're missing a little bit, you can say, okay, at least I've shot many, many times and I'm consistently missing, or I'm consistently not hitting exactly where I want to. That's probably the point at which you can say, all right, now it's time to dial this thing in.
And look into an app tracker for your arrows. There's ones that you can actually have a target graph, and you just walk up, some of you just take a picture of your arrows, and it'll plot them on a graph for you, or you just sit there and go, okay, that shot's here, this shot's at 12 o'clock, this shot's at 11, shot's at 3, okay? Mm-hmm. And then over time, it will show you your plot. Well, okay, I only have a couple arrows out at 3 o'clock, but I have enough consistency there. Which arrow is doing it? Did I mark my arrows? Is it a consistent arrow that's always flowing? Maybe I have something off there. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. But, bulk of my group is up here at, 10:30, 11 o'clock. Okay, let's move it, and then let's figure out why these are over here. Sometimes you have a flyer arrow.
Yep. So, you mark all your arrows?
Yep, I do.
What do you use to do that? Just a pen?
I use a black Sharpie on my practice ones, and it's a red Sharpie on my hunting ones.
Okay.
So when I get a brand new dozen arrows, I build 6 of them, and typically I do a different color than my hunting ones.
Okay.
So like my practice ones right now are green wraps, green veins. My hunting ones this year were yellow wraps, yellow veins, and then I built a bow mid-season to do some testing and went white wraps, white veins, which worked out real good in a blizzard. But yeah, so I always have a full dozen arrows, and they're all built the same. So the wraps are from the same company, so I know the weights are the same. The veins are from the same manufacturer on the same jig with the same glue. And I've got my grain scale there, and I'm super, super anal about how close everything is to. I'm weighing my field points, and if I've got 3/4 of a grain difference between them, I have them listed out lightest to heaviest, and then I light out my arrows heaviest to lightest, and I start matching up. Most of my arrows when I build them are within 1/2 to 3/4 of a grain.
The parallels to reloading, like you said, and long-range shooting are, it really is uncanny.
The reloaders were the only nerds out there that I just like, what a bunch of weirdos in their basement. But
oh yeah, and it's funny because when the Ulmer Edge broadhead came out a couple years ago, they actually have a locking screw, an Allen that goes into the broadhead through the blades, so they don't deploy. So you can practice with the actual head.
Oh, nice. Yep.
Remove that set screw, put your band back on. Your blades have been in the body of that ferrule the entire time, never exposed, so you could physically be shooting the exact same head that you were practicing with.
Oh.
That Allen screw weighed 1.5 grains.
I was just about to ask you how much that Allen screw weighed.
1.5 grains. Randy, when he was using that, I sight in for about 1 inch high with that, and I'm good to go.
Okay.
Or sorry, about 1.5 inches low.
Right.
Okay.
Because when he takes it out, he's going to pick up some speed.
Yeah, you take out a little
it's
weight.
dead on. Yeah.
But 1.5 inches, though.
At 100 yards. Yep.
And how many? 1.5 grains.
1.5 grains.
Can we also talk about the fact that we're talking about 1.5 inches at 100 yards with a bow?
Right.
Is 100 yards in archery world like the 1,000-yard mark in the shooting world?
I don't.
Not impossible, but a cool milestone to reach.
I don't know that I go with 1,000, but yeah, it's. I mean, there's a lot more guys doing it now, especially with movable sights. Whether it's single pin, 3-pin, 5-pin, whatever your quote unquote poison is there. It's something that we're starting to see much more of, which I'm sure is the same in the long range industry, because of the quality of the gear and the equipment that's being produced by manufacturers. And a lot of these guys, Lilja or Hart barrels, or I'm going to go with Christensen arms, and I'm going to take this, and I'm going to pillar bed, and I'm going to glass bed. And archery, you can geek out just as much.
Yeah.
What vein? Okay. Talk about FOC. How much front of center do I want to run? What kind of percentage? Is there a difference between 11 versus 13 versus 15 versus, I wonder if I can hit 20, and what does that do? And again, the ballistics characteristics of arrows. The longer the arrow, the weaker the spine. The shorter I go, the stiffer I become. Mm-hmm. So when I was getting into it with my draw length and where speeds from manufacturers were coming, which was around that 320 foot per second mark, which we look at now and go, that's slow. Well, I was able to take a 400 spine arrow, and the first couple Mueller setups I built for long range shooting, it's like 343, 346 grains.
Okay.
It's almost unheard of because that's so light. There is so much outside and environmental factors that can come into that. If I have a 5-mile-an-hour wind at 100 yards with a 340 grain arrow, I'm holding a foot and a half off.
Easily.
With a 5-mile-an-hour wind.
Wow.
I've never hunted my home state of Kansas with a 5-mile-an-hour wind. I wish I could.
Right.
So two of the last 3 bucks I've killed out there was 20 to 30 plus gusts.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's a doozy.
Yeah. So
what you think? Does it get gusty down in Arizona? Is that a totally naive question to ask?
I don't know. I mean, I think it could be anything, man. I really think you'll encounter. I mean, it's the West. It's generally windy.
Well, and especially this time of year when you've got weather systems moving in and out.
Right.
Chances are, I think the end of December, January, you'd see more of that, more switching going on, especially the switching. Thermals changing winds. Right. You're talking, what we were talking earlier, it's freezing at night. So 28, 30 degrees, you're coming up to frost. Middle of the day, you're talking
50s,
upper 50s,
60s.
low 60s.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big temperature shift.
Something's got to move around.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about, we talked a little bit about, the equipment, and I guess, what are, if a person does want, you talked about, sliding sights, movable sights, like I said, the equipment nowadays, it's really astonishing. Mm-hmm. Like the technology, the materials, the repeatability, right? I mean, just like a turret on a rifle scope needs to track, this sight that I have on here needs to track and be repeatable. So, I mean, maybe let's go into some of the, I guess, the tools of the trade, if you do want to be able to, execute shots at these extended ranges.
So the first thing, talking sights, that's going to be, in my opinion, one of the more critical aspects when it comes to long-distance shooting, especially when you start putting angles into effect. So you want to make sure you have a sight that has a second and third axis adjustment angle. Mm-hmm. So second axis is going to be as if we're standing on this table shooting flat. So what that sight is going to do is that sight is going to adjust along the horizontal axis to level or bubble out the bow.
Okay.
So if you have a machined riser or a plate on your bow for your sight mount that was machined at a bad angle, you can now come in and adjust for that.
Okay. Gotcha.
Your third axis is going to be when we start talking a vertical angle. Whitetail hunters especially listen to this part. A lot of guys like to get high in trees. Okay?
Yes.
Hunting western mule deer, you want to come in from above. Okay? Tree stand, 15 to 20 feet. I'm coming up and over the top. I could be 15 to 20 feet. I could be 50 yards above an animal. So your third axis is going to be when we start talking about taking that sight and coming down or having to shoot up on an angle of inclination.
Right.
So basically think about it as this water bottle. And if we can get this off of here real quick, you can see there's a bubble in here.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So when I come to full draw, as I rotate up or I rotate down, I'm not changing the level of that water bottle at all. But you can see how that bubble is going to run to one side or the other.
Right.
So essentially what we're going to do with that sight is we're going to take its 90-degree plane and we're going to adjust it away or towards the shooter, left or right dependent, for that angle. So now as I go uphill or downhill, I've adjusted that third axis angle where the bubble stays in the middle, up or downhill.
Oh, okay. So this is something I thought when you were talking about shooting up and downhill, I thought, we were going to have the old discussion where it's like, oh, well, there's like the angle and you got to shoot at the distance that's linear from you to the animal. I thought that's where I thought this was going. But actually, this is even just getting level.
This is just leveling out your sight.
Wow.
Because let's say I'm in a 20-foot tree stand and I'm trying to make a 21-yard shot. Okay, I come to full draw and I come down on that animal. If I have a sight that doesn't have third axis, or if I've never adjusted the third axis, when I come down, my bubbles run into one side. What's my natural tendency to do?
Tilt.
I want to level out. So I tilt that bow over. For a right-handed shooter, most time you tilt that bow to your left. What direction do you think you just pushed your arrow? Because now you've added torque into the system as well as leveling out your bow. You just pushed your arrow way out. Hopefully, in my case, my mental scenario, hopefully that animal is facing my right, so I have more lungs and diaphragm and liver to the back to where I can potentially recover that animal still.
Yeah.
If he's facing the other direction, now I'm going into shoulder. Am I going to get penetration? How have I built my setup for that worst case scenario where I'm going straight through the middle of that scapula?
How would you, so let's say somebody is in a tree stand, they know they're going to be coming up over the top of a hill, and they have this second and third axis adjustment. So is the second axis adjustment something you've probably already done at flat ground when you're sighting in the bow?
Yep. And most guys will come to full draw and notice it's hard for them to keep the bubble in because they're fighting it. So then, that's where they're going to adjust their second axis.
Okay.
Most techs at shops are going to do that right out of the gate for you. You can put it in a press, and typically your torque and everything that's induced into the system at full draw isn't going to change from static to full draw. So you can level that out in a vise right there before you even hand it over to the customer. You're leveled out, shoot. The only thing that would change that is if a guy tends to get in, a lot of trad guys that have converted for shoulders or elbow issues over time, they like to get into it. Depending on how much they're inducing in the system, sometimes you can level it out, sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
Sometimes we got to rebuild you from the ground up because I need you here before I can start getting into some of the more technical stuff.
I definitely shoot my trad bow a little better when I get into it a little bit more.
And it's physics. I have a heavy enough arrow and I have a shelf. If I lean down into that shot a little bit more, I'm going to keep it in the V of that shelf. If I'm up in vertical, as I come to full draw, I'm going to build tension on that string around my fingers. That actually rotates the string as you start coming to full draw.
Yeah.
Because as you get more tension, you tend to dig in and grip harder on that string, which pulls the arrow off.
Yeah.
Because most guys are going to get in. If this is my knock, I'm going to bear down on that sucker. The more I do that, the more I'm going to throw that arrow off.
Right.
So if I lean it down, even if I build some of that pressure, chances are gravity is going to help keep that arrow in the V of that window.
Right. So when you get to the, going back to that third axis thing now that's something that you're probably going to be adjusting when you're out in the field like situation dependent, right?
No. So
Or
once your third axis is set, you're good to go. And
Oh.
second axis does not affect what you've done to third axis. So you can set them each independently and not have an effect on the other.
Even if you're at less of a severe angle or more of a severe angle.
Yep, because at that point, all I'm doing is making a vertical shift.
Yeah,
So
okay.
coming, and again, don't want to, there's the animal, and I'm right here. You want to, okay, he's right here, come to full draw, get set, bend at the waist. One of the things that I was initially taught when I was in Mississippi was we're going to put guys in a bow that's anywhere from a half inch to a full inch shorter than their draw length should be. The reason for that is so many of that consumer base had that animal and they were going to be in that tree stand and draw straight there.
They're already looking down at it. They're already sort of almost aimed at it, and then they just draw while they're already looking down.
And so what happens to my good triangle structure is I'm not in line, bow arm straight into my shoulder and straight through into my back arm.
Yeah.
I'm here. My front shoulder's already collapsed. I have already shortened my draw, potentially a full inch.
Wow.
Because my elbow's off to the side. I'm not in proper alignment. So
you're almost like setting stuff up to compensate for bad practices.
Worst case scenario. Yep.
And that's not ideally what you're doing.
It's not, truly.
Yeah.
The bigger part is let's educate how we want this to go down.
Yeah.
I can have an animal there and I can come to full draw and anchor and I can come down on him and I have plenty of time if I set everything up correctly. So it's all about when do you draw? How's that animal's posture? What's he doing? How close is he? Are there other animals in the area? What's their attitude like?
Yeah.
So situational awareness and reading what's going on.
So many variables. Well, what about because I want to get into those other, I guess, variables that you can't control, right? But getting back to the equipment, like I've got an arrow here. Now I'm sure there's all sorts of different opinions, right? I mean,
I'd hold your arrow, but I know you don't like me to touch your stuff.
No touchy, Jim. But
the pink is so pretty.
Yeah.
Dude, it's high vis.
Pink is a good luck color.
I agree.
Any pink anywhere on the bow. My best elk setups, pink 4-inch wrap, pink veins, pink strings.
I figure it's basically the same color.
They said red was dead, but it's pink.
It's pink,
it's
baby.
Pink. And that goes back to, in my opinion, before lighted nocks were legal when I was in Colorado. I needed something I could find my arrows to recover them, so I knew what kind of shot I had.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times things happen so quick. We can think it was a good shot. We go up there, all of a sudden it's, that's not lung blood. That's bile. That's how do you take a step and you start rethinking what happened. Mind plays tricks on you.
Yeah.
So, recovery of arrows is critical. There's nowhere that I hunt any season starting from August until, spring turkey that there is naturally pink in the woods.
Right.
Yeah, that's fair.
So easy to find. Green, you can run into issues. White, you can run into issues. Yellow, I've run into issues. Orange, you can run into issues. Pink is the only one I can go to, and I know no matter where, no matter when, I can recover
I'm
arrows.
convinced neon green is the hardest color to find in the wild. I'm genuinely convinced. I remember one time at camp, this is a random story that probably nobody cares about, but one time at camp we were playing nighttime capture the flag, and everybody was dressed in black because we all want to be sneaky. One dude dressed in bright neon freaking green. He was invisible. I could see everybody else. Everybody else was high contrast black shadows moving through the woods. Kid in bright green, invisible. Anyway, fun fact.
Listen up, operators.
I think a lot of military guys will agree with you on that. Versus black, go to grays or slightly brighter colors because their ability to change contrast depend on the settings. Look at multicam.
Yep.
Look at the ability of that in rocky terrain versus urban areas versus high country green grasses, things like that. Like, look at the ability they've created for that to essentially absorb the outer environment and change contrast and almost even changing the color palette from green to gray or to brown or to...
Well, and you think about it, when you think about animals, right? I guess outside of a black bear, which stands out like a sore thumb generally, unless you're in a burn or something, you got a lot of stump bears out there, which I can generally find all of those. But muted earth tones, that's That's what blends in. You know,
And again, it's something, again, I don't see so much of in the whitetail market, but in the Western market, tons and tons of grays, browns, greens, solids being produced by companies in the clothing space. I love running a solid pair of pants with a camo top just to disrupt the pattern.
That's what I do all the time. I mean, it essentially cuts your body in half.
Yep. And sorry, I can go and I can wear those to the office.
Yep.
So
Nothing wrong with that. Dual purpose.
Yep.
I'm all about the solid pants.
Marco, you you are in your denim jeans there. You were just discussing arrows.
So that's what I want to get into,
you brought up
because
your arrows.
you know, a long range setup for
sorry.
target shooting, right? I think could potentially be, you know, maybe not the exact arrow setup that you might want for hunting, you know, and I guess we've thrown out a bunch of terms, you know, FOC, you know, how much does your arrow weigh, you know, and that's going to be including which veins you select, you know, probably what nock you select, you know, are you going to shoot
3 vein, 4 vein,
you know, 100 grain broadhead. So maybe go into, and I guess let's speak to like a hunting setup, maybe the you know, maybe like a best practices, or at least some solid foundation of what a person should be looking for as far as the type of the arrow and how it's set up.
Yep. So one thing, especially when you start considering penetration as well as long distance shooting, because to me those two go hand in hand.
Right.
Okay. What kind of penetration am I going to get if I'm going to take a long distance shot? Mm-hmm. I'm looking for a thinner arrow. I want to take my kinetic energy and I want to pick a bigger punch. Imagine if someone hits you with the flat of their hand, okay? Creates a red mark, it slaps, it hurts. Mm-hmm. Now, take a pencil with the same amount of force coming down on your hand because you just stole your coworker's sandwich, okay?
Sounds like oddly specific.
I may or may not have seen something similar. But again, it's the transfer of energy, okay? Larger surface area disperses more. Mm-hmm. So I want to take things and consolidate them. With the industry and the way it's gone, you have a lot more companies building what they call micro diameter shafts. Mm-hmm. Those are the 204s, which is the Axis 5 millimeter. It's the, I believe, Kinetic Chaos from Gold Tip, and I know Black Eagle's got them and Victory's got them. Every manufacturer out there has a 204 system. Mm-hmm. You also have the 4 millimeter, which is a 166. That's typically been the first company that did that was Easton with the Deep 6. Mm-hmm. Special insert, special thread, special broadhead. So a lot of companies came out with modified inserts for 166. There was an outsert technology, so a little bit more material, a little bit heavier. It increased your FOC, but it allowed you to use a standard 832 broadhead. So all of a sudden, your options again opened up and became endless.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm a big fan of the 166 or the 4 millimeter. You can run the titanium outserts, about 55 grains from Easton. Every manufacturer has one, and again, they can run anywhere from like a 168 down to a 164, 163 internal. Mm-hmm. So you can't necessarily use Easton and use a heavier from Victory with a 93 grain stainless steel. May not fit. So component wise, be careful with that. But you have less physical surface area to catch wind and drift at distance. I have a smaller area. I'm going to concentrate that kinetic energy in that initial contact with the animal. Therefore, I'm going to gain penetration.
Yeah, like with your hand example, one of them is like, hey, why'd you do that? The other one is, I need to go to the ER.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess with that kinetic energy, I also hear the word momentum thrown around. I guess what's the difference there?
So momentum is going to be a direct correlation between the speed of your arrow and the weight of it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Kinetic energy is a much more complicated formula. It's speed, which is velocity squared, times the mass weight of your arrow all over a constant. With the standard system that we use, which is velocity in feet per second, grains as our weight, okay, it is going to be mass weight in grains, speed of our arrow in feet per second squared, all over our constant 450,240. That will then create your kinetic energy calculator. Momentum, which is typically what you hear trad archers using, is just straight up mass and velocity. Boom, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Gotcha. And and talking about the diameter of the shaft, right? And then FOC, which stands for front of center. What, I guess, maybe define front of center for us.
So front of center is it's a percentage, or it's a how much weight is forward of the middle of your shaft.
Okay.
I don't use that one as much, to be honest. But there's a measurement from center. You measure to the back, you measure to the front, and then you find that balance point, and then you can calculate the difference from center of arrow to balance point.
Okay, right.
To see where that shift is at.
Now, if I had to take a wild stab, and I genuinely don't know a whole lot about FOC and all that stuff, but it would seem that maybe either now or at one point people probably thought that having more mass up front meant that it would sort of determine the way and the back end would just follow.
Control. Yep.
And
You're
control
essentially
it better.
pulling that arrow through the environment versus even or heavier back load, which is now pushing.
Yeah.
Which typically you can see less control with.
Well, it's like rear wheel drive versus front wheel drive.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mark.
So-
I had to.
So what? And I feel like I hear, everybody's got their theory, right? And some people are like extreme front of center, a lot of weight up front, which I think in some ways, maybe intuitively, maybe not intuitively, depending on who you are, like that seems like you'd be like, oh my gosh, I've got all this weight up front. I'm going to get like extreme penetration, right?
Right.
But from what I understand, that's not necessarily the case.
Correct. And I don't think so either. I believe there is a point where, and again, you add weight to the front of your arrow, and you actually weaken the system, the arrow itself. Add weight to the back, and you can increase stiffness. So as you cut your arrow, you get stiffer. As you build up the front weight, you get weaker.
Right.
So there's a fine balance point where I created the perfect setup with my arrow length, but I put way too much weight up front, and now it doesn't tune.
Okay.
So, there's that balance. And again, Western hunters, I think, play with this a little bit more because of the increased potential distance that we're going to be hunting, because we want to pull that arrow through the air.
Yeah.
Where you're seeing guys running 75 grain brass insert with 125 or 150 grain broadhead, and all of a sudden I'm shooting 200 to 225 grains up front, and my total arrow weight is 670 grains. Might be overkill. Like, you can take that setup
seems
to
like a big
Africa.
percentage.
Right. So,
Right.
I look at our Olympic athletes and the guys that are competing with compounds at Redding tournament, which is marked yardage 3D tournament in Redding, California every year. Your shots are anywhere from 4 yards to 101. What kind of setup are they running? Well, they're going to run an Easton Pro Tour arrow with anywhere from 100 to 120 grains up front, because Easton runs a break off 100 to 120 point. Okay, so that's kind of the realm I want to work within when I start building my long distance setup. So I take an Easton injection, 330, which is 10.1 grains per inch. I use the Deep 6 insert, which is 20 grain stainless steel. I have 100 grain broadhead that I start with, so I have 120 total grains up front. If I feel like I need more, I can bump that field point of broadhead up to 125, and now I'm shooting 145 up front. That's really about all I want to work with and really feel the need that I need to play with, because that's really going to get me anywhere from 11 to 13% up to potentially 17-ish, which it's a happy place for where my setups have typically built with the length of my arrow.
Gotcha.
We had talked about how we met with the photo shoots. Justin Davis was one of the guys that was on those photo shoots with us. Another Colorado guy.
God, that
one
guy's
of the
a
most
killer.
hard. Oh, dude, drew his mountain goat tag, drew his moose tag this year. We have almost identical setups. We're both running a 34 axle RX3 Ultra Series. We're both pulling 72 to 77 pounds. He is a huge FOC guy. So we were talking last week. He had 140 grains up front. Impacts were great. he can call shots. He knows where arrows are going to land. His groups are tight. I'm thinking about playing with another 20 grains. What do you think? Do it and see what happens. If your groups open up, I think you weakened your spine too much.
Right.
If they shrunk down, I'd say you found a good system. I don't want to go there. One of the reasons is I'm limited enough by the deep 6 for my broadhead selection.
Okay.
I don't want to go to 125 in a deep 6 and limit me even more versus having to find another system to run to put more weight up there. You can double stack inserts. Now I can put 40 grains there and have 100 and 125 option. I can go from 140 to 165. What happens if I don't want to double insert it? Now I got to figure out how to get one out of there. So there's drawbacks, in my opinion, for that.
How does FOC affect penetration?
And again, depends on the distance, but as you get longer, FOC is going to help increase momentum and kinetic at distance because it's going to maintain energy because you're pulling, not pushing.
Okay.
So you could potentially, at 80 yards, get better penetration having 160 grains up front versus having 120. I would have more initial speed, but it would fall off quicker because of drag.
Okay.
So,
how do you get more weight on the back?
wraps, more veins, a heavier vein, lighted nocks in states that allow you to use them. Different lighted nocks weigh different amounts.
Yeah.
Some would weigh 20, some weigh as much as 30 plus grains. You can run a 4-inch wrap, which typically run about 5 grains. You can run a 7-inch wrap, which typically go up to 10 to 12. If you change the material of the wrap, you can get heavier. If you run a standard wrap and have a little more overlay, you could put more weight on the back versus running like a micro diameter one, which is going to cut down the amount of material so you run less weight. The AAE Max Stealths weigh about 9 grains per vein. It's a 2.6 inch, so you're running approximately 27 grains plus glue on the back. I like the PM23 from AAE, which is 2.3 inches, same parabolic or rounded cut to the back, but it's a shorter profile. I can run 4 of those, and their new hybrid one is just a touch over 4 grains. So I've got 18-ish grains on the back plus glue and a wrap. So I'm still less with 4 veins set up than you are with a 3.
Gotcha.
So. And so speaking of veins, is like more veins better if you can do it, or
for control and stability? Yes, I do believe that, especially if you're shooting a fixed blade.
Okay.
It will create more drag, so you will lose energy quicker over distance.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
But when it comes to control, again, I ran a 4-vein setup of the Stealths last year. Loved the control. I shot a bigger fixed blade broadhead and had 80 yards was shooting with my field points. What more do you need?
Right.
So.
Right.
Mark, you were running 4, right?
So initially I had this this exact setup, and then I'm trying to remember the name. It was the AAE. So this is the Max Stealth, and it was the Max. Maybe it's the ones you're even talking about.
Hunter. They have kind of a step down on the back.
Okay. And so I was running the 4 Fletch there, and just because I've heard a lot of talk about it, did some research, and again, and this might tie into some of the other stuff that we're talking about adjusting your rest and whatever. I was paper tuning just fine with them, and again, we talked a little bit about grip, so maybe it could have been just my input into the system, but I was noticing erratic arrow flight with field points. And then when I'd put a fixed blade broadhead in, it was just like
really bad. Like accentuated it, right?
Yeah, it accentuated it. Where when I switched to these veins, it just really seemed to clean it all up.
And that specific vein, it's 2.1 inches long, and it's their higher profile. So it's like 0.6 or 0.65 inches tall.
Okay,
it's one of the highest in the market. So that's the Boning Blazer, the Max Hunter, VeinTech's got a 2-inch model. Because those veins are so short, to create the same drag coefficient or control and steering that vein is going to produce, you have to build it taller.
Okay.
So if your rest was in the optimum position where you were just slightly inside with a higher profile vein at the right distance away from paper, could have been perfect.
Okay.
You could have stepped a foot back or a foot forward and gotten a slight tear.
Okay.
Which now once you put a fixed blade broadhead on, makes it even worse.
Right.
You know, if you're seeing that arrow come out and kick to the left, you probably would have had a left tear if you stepped up or back.
Okay.
Just because of where the arrow was coming out of your bow, which is now going to, if I'm throwing a left tear, it's going to pull, because now my broadhead has more surface area. It's going to pull and drive it to the right, opposite of what my tear would be.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so is that because the veins, is that because they're contacting something as they're leaving the bow that they're doing that? Or is that just because of the way they fly through the air with that particular arrow set up and weight up front and FOC and all that other stuff?
I'm always concerned with fletching contact on a higher profile vein, whether that's contact on the cables, contact on the rest itself. If a drop away rest isn't timed properly, it could be dropping just slow enough with a high profile vein that you're going to make contact coming out of the bow.
Okay.
And that's going to shift my veins, put pressure on that arrow, and now it's coming out doing something squirrely. So get some foot powder spray and make sure it leaves a white residue. Spray the back end of your arrow, come to full draw, and see if there's any marks on cables as you go by or on your rest fork as it drops. It'll leave that residue on it. Yep, I got contact. I need to do something. Either change my veins, look at my rest timing, potentially change my rest if I can't get to move the way I need it to.
Okay.
So,
Mark, have you figured this thing out?
Or
is that why we brought Evan here today?
So, well, I couldn't tell you what was happening, but I can tell you that it's cleaned up now by making that change.
Because I watched you shoot it, and I thought it shot pretty well. And it just sounds to me like the thing that's baffling is there's just so much that goes into it.
There's so much that goes in. Do you have a speculation of what?
If you changed veins and it cleaned it up, I'm guessing you had slight contact. So if you look at the rest right there, see that skid mark across the base?
Yeah.
You had white veins on it, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
That's a white vein mark. So you were making contact with your rest with a higher profile vein setup.
Look at that, Mark.
I never would have noticed that in a million years.
This guy could be like a forensic scientist or something. He's like Ducky.
If we get some time today, I want to go shoot and have you watch this setup.
We should. We got the setup down. Yeah.
And another good test, especially where you guys shoot a lot together, if you were behind him with a set of binos at like 10 yards behind him.
Yeah.
Where Mark can come to full draw, and off the left side of your image, you have him at full draw with his bow.
Okay.
And you can see the target, and you put them where you can see a clear path of arrow trajectory. You as a spotter can get behind him just like a tactical guy is going to have, shooter, spotter. Yep. Okay. I'm marking your arrow for you. I'm looking at how that arrow is coming out. And again, you want to do it at distance for two reasons. One, you want to have flight time. That way your spotter can track that arrow. And two, you want it to be a long enough distance that arrow is going to get up into the sky where it's not impeded by any kind of shrubbery or landscape terrain, so you can physically see what that arrow is doing. And it's coming out. We got a slight corkscrew going on. You put a broadhead on, and you're going to see an impact shift.
Okay.
So,
real quick, what is the thing that happens when you go from a field point and you see something? Why does it seem like a broadhead almost accentuates whatever you see with a field point?
So with an expandable type, most guys are going to want to shoot a 2-inch broadhead because it leaves a big hole.
Okay.
So that ferrule, or the broadhead itself, that length increases. So most field points are going to be, let's say, 1/2 inch to 5/8 of an inch.
Okay.
2-inch broadhead, you're talking 1.5 inches in length. Okay, I'm taking the same weight, but I'm extending that distance and pushing it farther from the end of the shaft.
Yeah.
I'm changing my front of center. I'm changing my balance point of that arrow.
Yeah.
Okay. Typically what you'll see is even with an expandable, at distance, it will start hitting low.
Okay.
Okay. With a fixed blade, Still typically has a shorter ferrule, but you're still talking an inch and a quarter, depending on the cutting diameter and the blade angle. But now I have fixed blades. It might be something like a Hades from Grim Reaper, or a Striker, or a Slick Trick, where the blades have a cutout design to minimize weight to get down to that 100 or that 125 grain.
Mm-hmm.
But now you create one, blade surface area, and two, you change air disruption because you have opened up that blade surface. So if I have my ferrule here and I've got a broadhead blade, I'm not going straight over a system.
Yeah.
I have air pockets and holes
Yeah.
that air can drop into, and now I create more resistance when I go through the air.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
So
It's kind of like almost like a muzzle brake. Well, kind of, but way different. But the way that gas diverts around, or air
Oh, okay.
diverts around openings in the broadhead.
So what kind of you hear people talk about planing? Is that kind of what's happening there too?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
I feel like
Just the way that air is
It'll
passing over the blades.
Yep. And again, you might have a great paper tear to your eye, but as you start stepping back, let's say past 40, you might start noticing that shift where you were good up to that because it was so minuscule that, 50 you see it move a little, 60 you see it move a little bit more, 70, and all of a sudden you just see it start opening up group-wise.
Right.
Sometimes it's the broadhead, sometimes it's just I am naturally moving a lot more at that distance. So you have to take some of that into account.
Yeah, that's tough.
So
That's always tough to try and figure out what's just you and what's the bow.
Yeah.
And one thing I feel like, so we discussed it sort of back at the beginning, but I feel like it's probably something worth iterating on quite a bit is a lot of this comes down to everybody loves to talk about the gear, and everybody loves to. I remember back when I was a kid, I used to get the latest basketball shoes, like the Shaqs or the what was it, the Tracy McGrady's.
Oh, you went pro after that, right?
Yeah, basically, right? But it was I literally remember walking to my house, my brothers being like, "How high can you jump with those shoes?" They like egging me on, you know, like, "How fast can you run with those?" And it'd be like, "Oh, they're way faster than last year's. I can jump so much higher than last year's." And so everybody wants to talk about the gear because they think it's like, it makes me so much better. But the actual shooter comes into this a ton.
Yep.
Like, what are some really good? What's the best way to go out and practice? Like when you're at the range, because when I go out, I'm kind of like, throw the target up. That's Well, of course, I'm a trad bow too, so for me, I'm not like Mark likes it to be exactly 20 yards, not like 20.1. For me, I'm just kind of like, it looks like about 20 yards, But how do you do it?
and it depends on where you started at. Again, going back to that new consumer, tons of blank bail.
Yeah,
Like, get 10 yards from a big 4-foot target or something you're not going to miss, with no spots, no target, nothing up there, and just come to full draw, feel your anchor, feel how you're in the grip, and execute a shot. Don't get your finger up there and just hammer down on that trigger. Make contact, get a release that has an actual spring on it that you can get your finger engaged, just like a rifle trigger,
like a 2-stage,
and squeeze through that shot.
Okay.
Index triggers, I really like the Carters. They have a light, a medium, and a heavy spring. Depending on which model you get from them, it comes with all the springs. Play with them. See which one you like. I cannot get their heavy to go off unless I just crank into it. I put a light in there, and I can barely touch it. Medium is perfect, and it's like an 80-pound spring. I can build tension, get enough finger into there that even in cold, when I don't have a glove on, because I never use a glove, I'd rather use a muff and have a I don't even remember what they're called.
Like hot hands. Yeah.
in there
Yeah, okay.
to keep everything warm. That way,
Yep.
when I get out, I have nothing to impede my anchor point and my connection to the trigger.
Right.
Because I want to feel the connection to my bow and the connection to the release.
Yeah.
So, and just execute good shots, build that muscle memory in that form, then start putting the target into play. Because it'll change. Are you a guy that wants to look at the target and just kind of lets things float and you stare and you execute good shots and you just kind of blur out the pins but they go in the right areas? Or are you a guy that has to stare at your front sight and physically put that pin into an area and hold it there to execute your shot? Because it's two completely different mental tasks when it comes to that execution.
Is a person going to be naturally drawn to one of those two things, or is that something that you're depending on either just what you start doing or what somebody teaches you? That's kind of going to be the way you go.
I think it's more taught because first thing that you want to do, I have to put my pin here.
Right.
So you naturally look at that pin on your front sight and get it into the area. Well, that blurs the target out, so it actually increases your subconscious view of it.
Okay.
So,
which I've heard. So, and I think that's what I do. Right.
You stare at the pin.
I stare at the pin and the target blurs. And in some ways, it's not too different. You hear talk, or at least I would assume it's not that different. You guys talk about pistol shooting, right? And it's like front sight, and actually, I think the target ends up, kind of blurring. But I was on the YouTube the other day, and I was hearing a guy describe kind of like, well, actually, you probably want to be doing the reverse, because it'd be like when you're driving a car and you're just staring at your steering wheel. And I was like, oh, that kind of does make sense. Like, you don't stare at the steering wheel; you stare at
where you want to drive, where you want to go.
Yeah,
like you're looking down range at the target or the road. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Evan?
Yep, always look at your target. So
great.
and my system that I felt like I built is I start close and move far. So I come to full draw, hit my anchor, get my nose down. I look at my peep sight and build that center focus. So peep, good spot, right to my front sight ring. Once I have my peep sight and my front housing lined up, check the bubble, and now I'm downrange. And I never go back to anything here.
And there's a little bit too, like giving your brain the information to, your subconscious is always working, but sometimes it's nice to sort of train your subconscious to know what your conscious wants it to look at. Yep. So when you look down that peep sight and you see that post, and then you go on to look at other things, at least your brain remembers what that looked like. It's a little bit like when, you're looking for a deer out in the wild, you're glassing. You don't always start seeing deer necessarily until you finally see that first one, because then you get your deer eyes, and your brain then knows, oh, okay, yeah, that's right, that's what I'm looking for. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's like, oh, there's another one. Oh, there's another one.
And we used to run exercises when I was at the OTC where you're in position, you've got everything loaded, and the guy you're training with that day, it's like, okay, we're going to do subconscious training. I want you to shoot a shot and this ring in this clock location. Well, you're running peep sights, so it's all circles. There's no crosshairs, there's no dot, there's nothing to look at. It's circle, 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 target. It's all open. How do you figure that out? You look there. Okay, this looks like it's 9.3 at 1 o'clock, so I'm going to look right there, execute my shot. Electronic monitor comes up, 9.4. Okay, I'm within a tenth. Started doing that when I started shooting more long-distance archery. It's, okay, I want to call my shot versus I want to shoot in the center. Okay, come to full draw. I want to shoot a 7 at 3. Okay, I'm staring over, 7 ring, 3 o'clock, take the shot. Spotter, 7, 3 o'clock. Okay, perfect. My sight's on. I put it where I was looking. Things are good. Now I just have to go back to the center and stare at it and focus at it. And call your shots, especially longer distance stuff. That arrow has enough flight time. Break that shot. Mentally put it in your mind. This is where my eyes were at when that shot broke. Binos. Yep, that's where it hit.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, mentally catalog and keep track of that stuff.
Yep.
That's dope.
Yep. And it's good mental training as well. And if you can, 2014, I drew my first limited entry Colorado elk tag. Stoked about it. Got up in there, and I got between two bulls. One of them was by himself. One of them had a herd of cows, and I knew the lower one was a 6 that had one whole side broken off because I'd passed him that morning, and had this solo bull come in, and he was a big 5x6, and came right in on me, 17 yards, came to full draw, and I snapped a twig. He didn't turn away. He turned into me, made a good shot, but only got one lung, blew him out. 8 hours later, never found him. Was heartbroken. Searched for a week, never found him. Moved spots 2 days later. I actually had Justin on the phone, and I had just got to where I wanted to camp, took my pack off, started to pull my stuff out, and was on an east-facing slope and had service because town was 3 miles away in a big open flat. So I'm talking to him, pulling stuff out, and I hear a bull just, oh. Hey, Justin, I got to go. I got a bull going, and I'm inside 100 yards already. What? Hung up the phone, grabbed a camo shirt, went right in, smelled him, wind was coming up, saw one of his cows moving, had another one come to the other side, hit a cow call. He bugles, and he comes up. Came to full draw. I was like, okay, he's going to be right here. Put my pins in those spots and waited. He stepped in, and I didn't even have to cow call. And it was a point-restricted unit. So it had to be 4 points to a side or a 5-inch brow tine. Well, because I came to full draw as early as I did, I didn't know what he was. I had anchored in, and I ended up going over my string and looking to the side of my bow, went, he's a legal bull. And instead of coming back into my peep sight, I just went straight down to the shoulder pocket with my eyes still here going, I think I want, and the shot broke. And the arrow went where my eyes were looking. Well, not in my anchor, not in my peep sight, nothing. I got there first, trained my body, the shot will be right here. And that's where the shot broke, and that's where he was at. Just, it's amazing what you can do mentally when you've connected so well with your equipment. And that's where practice comes in.
Yeah.
Mark,
That's pretty impressive.
that's getting to That's getting to some trad bow levels.
I know you're kind of you're
there.
blending it a little bit, blending
It's
it.
blending.
Well, let's
Try the Cam Haynes no-look shot with a trad bow.
Oh, I'm not there yet.
that might be what I actually do inadvertently every time. And we've covered some of this stuff, but it's like we've got the equipment, and I guess what are the things a person needs to keep in mind when they're shooting? Really, I guess every bow shot, really, not just long range, but what are the things that you want to do to make sure? Because there's a lot of benefits to shooting long range. Maybe we probably should have gotten into some of these earlier, but you were talking about, essentially that practicing at double the distance, maybe you anticipate shooting at a game animal. So maybe go into that a little bit, and then we can transition into kind of how a person wants to go through and make sure that they're executing these shots correctly and consistently.
Yep. And one of the big things, too, is treat every shot as its own. A lot of guys will go out, I'm going to shoot a 3 or 5 arrow group, and they just get down there and wing them. Every shot counts. Get that tracker, shoot one arrow, go pull it. Shoot one arrow, go pull it. Every single time. Don't shoot for a group once you feel like, okay, my sights are on, I know everything's rolling with my setup, everything is good, I just need time behind the bow. I'll take a 30-minute lunch break at work, and I'll go over and I'll shoot, and I might only shoot 12 or 15 arrows in 30 minutes because I'm shooting one shot, putting my bow down, and I'm walking 80 to 100 yards down to that target, pulling and walking all the way back. But one quality shot every single time. It's the only shot I'm going to get.
Yeah?
This is the one that counts.
I know what you're going to say, Mark.
Well,
I know.
I don't have to say it.
The one-shot group.
Yep. So, and that's where that app or that shot tracker can come into play where, okay, I'm going to shoot arrow 1, 15 shots this day, 1 arrow at a time. Shoot, pull, shoot, pull. The next day might be arrow number 2 and plot them. Arrow number 1, here's my 15 for that day. Arrow number 2, here's my 15. You might have 1 or 2 or 3 that are doing good, but you notice, let's say number 4 is flying a little bit, 5 or 6 come back into the group. Strip it and refletch it. Turn the knock a little bit. Who knows?
Yeah.
Could be just something with that arrow. But by putting the time in with that specific arrow, tracking them, and making each shot its own individual, this is the one I'm going to get. You'll see that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And then the double distance practice. So that was something I ran into when I first started getting into bow hunting. It was an article that Bill Krenz wrote that was published in Bow Hunt America. And it was, with my equipment and my capabilities and what I'm confident in, I know I can do X. Whether that's 20 yards, whether that's 30, maybe it's 40, maybe you're pushing further out. But if I can shoot a 10-inch group at 80 yards, but I know my safe zone, my comfort zone is 40 yards on an animal. Too many things happen after that. Like I've seen bad things. I don't want to go past that. And you shouldn't. Ethics it's a personal thing. If 40 yards is your cap, 40 yards is your cap. Practice at 80.
Yep.
If you can take, and let's say you start out and you're shooting a 20-inch group at 80, and you shoot and you shoot and you shoot, and you get more comfortable and more confident, and all of a sudden you're shooting an 8-inch group at 80 yards. Well, when you come to 40, that should be a 4-inch group.
Right.
You're half the distance. You are twice as effective. And slowly push that comfort boundary. You know, maybe after a couple months, you try 90. And now you take that 4-inch group at 40, and now it's a 4-inch group at 45. You go to 100. Now when you come back to 50, you've pushed that 4-inch group from 40 to 45, and now you're 50. What if you have to take a follow-up shot at 50 yards? You've already got an arrow into an animal, and he stops.
Yeah.
I've done it. I shot a whitetail buck in Kansas in 2014 at less than 8 yards. Spot and stock, had a decoy, got him out of his bed. He came right in. I was in grass this tall.
Jeez.
It was like a 6-yard shot. Perfect double lung, 1.5-inch fixed blade broadhead. He goes, jumps out to about 18 yards. I get a second arrow knocked, come to full draw. He's not on the ground yet. I'm going to put a second arrow in him.
Yep.
As I hit full draw and come into my anchor, he starts walking away. And he's not straight away. He's angling up this hill, going to the southwest. Okay? He was at 18. There's 20, 25. There's 30. And I'm walking him up the hill, pin on him. It's like, and he stopped, and he looked back, and he gave me about this angle. I was like, 51 yards. Put my 50 on his back ham, went up through behind the last rib, got both lungs, came out right in front of the front shoulder, between the neck and that front shoulder. He goes 60 yards and is done.
Yep.
Wow.
So, but it's a 50-yard follow-up.
And that's, that's a 50-yard follow-up. And that's a really big thing to remember. No matter what, you set your personal limits at, everything doesn't always go right the first time. And if you get a bad hit, that's, well within your comfort range, who knows what went wrong, right?
Yep.
Like I said, the animal could have moved. You could have any number of factors, right? It's infinite. But you might need to take that 50, 60, 100-yard shot potentially.
Yep.
And once you got an arrow in them, it's, you have a responsibility to do the best of your ability to recover the animal.
Yeah.
Yep. A mule deer I shot in Colorado a couple years ago, same thing. Got an arrow in him, and it was a good shot. And again, you replay that. It's like, did I hit him here? Did I hit him here? Like, he's not down. He stopped on the slope, perfectly broadside. I hit him with a rangefinder, 77 yards. All right. I've been practicing it over 100. Came to full draw, came down on him. That motion, he looked up, turned his body, went up and end over, and it was done. I didn't have to take it.
Right. But you were comfortable
I was ready
and confident.
and prepared to do it.
Yeah.
So and conversely, the same thing. I've talked to a lot of guys and had this shot on this buck and thought I hit him at 18, 20 yards. And so, I was ready for a follow-up, and he stopped at 56, 60 yards on a whitetail.
Yep.
Half those guys I talked to missed that first shot.
Yeah.
Their adrenaline was spiked. Things happened so quick. They thought they had an arrow in. The animal was still standing. I need to put him down. This is the opportunity I have.
Yep.
We owe it to the animal.
Yep.
Now, had they known they missed the first shot, would they have taken the second? Probably not.
Right.
But because they trusted that they had been practicing that and they knew their equipment, they were able to put an arrow in that animal. That one in particular I got in my head was a 165-inch buck in Iowa. They had never seen it on the farm before. Guy missed him at, I think it was 19 yards, spun out in the middle of a food plot, looked back at 58 yards. Second arrow, here we go. As calm as can be.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice.
Well, and I think, oftentimes we want to say that, if you're whitetail hunting, you're not going to encounter, these longer distances. And I'd say, well, that depends on the terrain, but also, here, we're in the heart of the Midwest, and I'm comfortable shooting out to 50 yards. And the last 2 deer that I've killed with my bow in this state have been basically right at 50 yards.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they both.
What was Eric's at? Eric's was right around here in Wisconsin too.
I don't recall what his was at.
60-something,
It might have been something like that. But again, like practice at those ranges. I'm comfortable at those ranges, and wouldn't have gotten deer either of those years had I not been able to make that shot. Yep. And I mean, like you said, there's guys that are eclipsing that greatly. For a lot of guys, 50 yards is not a big deal at all.
Yeah,
right?
or an average shot depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
But again, it's also reading that situation. Had that buck been on alert and looking at you because you went, "Meh," I'm not going to take that shot because he's going to duck.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So he's up feeding. He's looking around. Again, situational awareness. Every situation will be different.
Yep. Well, and I think some guys, you bring up, the animal's demeanor, right? And I think people like to draw ethics lines in the sand of how far other people should shoot, and I think you potentially could argue an animal that's further away, that's less aware of your presence, is going to possibly be a better shot to take if you're confident shooting at those distances.
Absolutely. The animals I've shot past 50 yards, broadside, looking at me draw, anchor, execute, and take the arrow. Never moved.
Jeez.
Well, what is that? There's a comfort zone.
Yeah.
And read whatever article you want about it. You hear guys talk about it. Randy Ulmer, going back to him, every animal has a comfort zone. I know if I get to this distance, I'm probably inside it, so I am prepared to get only to here, and I'm not getting closer. There's something to it.
Interesting.
I added up all the animals I had taken, and it was about 10 animals in a 7-year period, and I added up all the shot distances. My average was just over 55 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're talking Western muleys, and Western, it's Kansas and Colorado.
Yeah.
But it was just over a 55-yard average, and I had one at 18, and I had one that was much further. So comfort zones are big. Animals' demeanor is big. Environmental factors, what kind of terrain, what's the wind doing?
Wind, yep.
Yep. So, and it's, I don't feel like I can go out and criticize someone for taking a shot because I don't know what they're doing.
Right.
What's their setup? How much have they shot it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, especially with social media these days, I have a hard time going out there and publicizing, hey, I shot this buck at this distance and so pumped and blah, blah, blah. I don't know how guys are going to take it.
Yeah.
They don't know how much I'm shooting. They don't know what I put into my setups. If I go out and say, I shot this buck at 61 yards, well, boom, I'm going to get crucified.
Right.
Yeah.
My mule there this year, 63.3. And I was 25 feet above him shooting down into a canyon with the wind coming over the top, quartering into me in the snow. I was ready for it.
Yeah.
It's almost identical to the elk shot I had this year as far as angle and distance was 15 yards difference. And I didn't know how far my bull was. I built my setup where I knew, okay, I'm shooting 302 feet per second with a 455 grain arrow. It's going to get there. He's between this and this. That gap is going to be 6 inches drop between them. Money. Done.
Yep.
So,
wow.
Because we've all been in that situation too where we don't get to range the animal.
Yeah.
Or he's coming up. He's going to be over here. That's where the trail's at. That's where the does have been coming. That's where the cows are at. Whatever the situation is, that animal is going to be over here. I'm going to range this tree. Okay, everything is between 22 and 37 yards. I know what I'm going to do. And all of a sudden he comes in, makes a 90-degree cut. Okay. Take your best guess because he's already looking at you.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
We've covered so much ground, and I
love
feel
it.
like we've left a little bit on the table. But
I feel it's almost like a cliffhanger.
Yes. But I think the bottom line is get the right setup.
Yes.
And get to know your
and
setup.
get proficient with it.
Put the time in. Yep. And if you're fletching your own stuff, play with different vane setups. Play with different broadheads. Again, you want to talk about long-range shooters and automotive guys and archers, there's no difference. We are all gearheads.
It's true. It is. Yeah, that is absolutely true. You find that very, very big similarity between everybody, and it's been very, very interesting listening to this. 'Cause me as a relative new entry into the archery world now, and it's been very interesting to hear all those.
It's just
similarities.
It really makes me want to shoot more and more and more, and actually fiddle with my stuff more and more and more.
And we didn't even go into quivers and stabilizers yet.
Jiminy Christmas.
Oh, jeez. Real quick.
Uh-oh.
Stabilizers. So I've got, you see guys, I guess I'd call this a more traditional stabilizer. Then you guys have these, kicker bars. I mean, what are your thoughts on stabilizers?
Stabilizer is the...
We'll go back to the gear. That's what's going to fix it.
Is the dongle sticking out on the front.
Yep.
Yes.
So this is a Hoyt with our Pro Series. This is the 8-inch version. We make those in an 8 and a 6. Most companies, especially stabilizer ones, are going to run, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36. So that's going to be hunting and target.
At what point is the stabilizer just touching the target?
Steve Anderson at 6'8", running a 33-inch stabilizer.
That
trying to shoot a Redding. What was it this year? There was a 3.2-yard shot or something like that.
So in a hunting scenario, essentially you've equipped yourself with a bayonet.
Yep. Just put a poker on the end of it.
Yep. But again, let's get back to talking about surface area. We talked about surface area of the arrow and flight path. Okay. Mm-hmm. The longer the stabilizer, the thicker diameter of it, the more surface area for wind to connect to.
Right.
You leave your quiver on. You have 4, 5, or 6 arrows with vanes and a quiver mount hood. You have more surface area on your bow to contact, and therefore, as the wind picks up, so does your movement.
Yeah, it's like a sail on a sailboat.
So, and that is one thing I do like about the carbons is, depending on what I'm going to be hunting, elk, I know I'm covering more terrain, and I'm going to be in the woods, so wind doesn't become a factor in my shot.
Right.
It becomes a factor in what it is doing from a scent standpoint, but not in my shot. So I can go super ultralight with my setup for elk, and then as I go to the Midwest or I start getting to that spot and stock, I can tweak my stabilizer setup. I'm not going to change my speed, but I could potentially change the angle that the bow sits in my hand, slight bump in a sight tape. So if you're running a slider sight, you're going to have a sight tape on it. My point of impact, as I change my stabilizer weights, because it's going to change the angle and how it sits in my hand, could cause a vertical shift in my point of impact. Roll your sight, move your indicator, double check everything, 20 to however far you're going to do it. Shouldn't move any marks. You might just need to make a vertical adjustment there. You see a lot of Western guys go to a longer front stabilizer, anywhere from 10, 12, or even 15 inches up in front.
Wow.
The longer that stabilizer gets, the less weight you need on the end to have the same effect.
Okay, sure.
So where Mark's running an 8-inch stabilizer with about with a doinker, you're about 6.8 to 7 ounces or so up front.
What is it with you putting doinkers on all your weapons? You got a doinker on your 300 Wisdom, you got a doinker on your bow.
So I could run a 15-inch stabilizer and put 2 or 3 ounces up front and have the same balance point, but I have less total weight on it. So then it's, okay, how does it handle long distance? How much does it move around? Do I go to a narrower stabilizer to cut down on the surface area so I move less, but I hold better because I have less weight farther out? Okay. So back bars are the same thing. Where do you want the balance point? When I take my shot, what I'm essentially feeling is I want that bow to go straight at the target and then die off.
Okay.
So if you're to watch me from the side, and this is my riser, the bow is going to go towards the target because I have a little bit of push I'm going to have left in my body.
Right.
Because I'm building tension, I'm pushing towards the target, and I'm pulling away. When that shot breaks, it's boom, bow goes forward, and then my follow through, straight arm, and it dies to the side. So the bow never rocks, doesn't kick, vertical the whole time through that plane. For me, if it kicks up, I'm going to add weight to the front, bring it down.
Okay. Yeah.
If it rolls hard, I'm going to start either taking weight off or maybe change the back angle.
Okay.
Do you shoot with your quiver on or off?
I use a 2-piece, so I use a fixed quiver so it's always on.
Okay.
Now, to fight the surface area, I only run a 4-arrow.
Okay.
Typically out west, I'm only going to have 1 or 2 tags in my pocket. If I'm going in deeper for a longer trip, like this year, me and my buddy went into Colorado. It was a 9-day elk hunt. 4-arrow quiver. My broadhead of choice, I can actually take the blades off. And so I've got little containers that our cam bearings come in, and I can get 4 broadheads in there and then just tape it up. So I've got 4 extra broadheads on top of the 4 I'm hiking in.
Okay.
And then in my bugle tube, I put it upside down on the side of my pack, and I can stick spare arrows veins down in my bugle tube to hike in. So I've got 4 at all times ready to go, plus backups in case.
Okay.
So
Right on.
and that reduces weight on my bow. That reduces surface area for veins. So I'm not going to catch on extra stuff. And the only time I've had issues was 2010 in Colorado. I hit a buck that we never recovered, and I completely lost the arrow, so I was down to 4. 2 or 3 days later, the buck I was after was below me, came to full draw, came down, and I was straddling a log and thought I was high enough. I caught it by about a 1/16 of an inch with my bottom cam, kicked my bow, arrow broke in half, went flying. I got a second opportunity at him, came over and just rushed the shot and was able to recover that. So now I'm down to 3 with a spare broadhead in camp. I had 3 good arrows. The 9th day of that trip, 10 days there, came back in and didn't even get a chance to build new arrows. So I went in with 3 arrows. The buck I was after came below me, didn't get a chance to range him, thought he was closer than he was, took the first shot, and it went like 10 inches under his belly. Bounced off the rocks below him, so he turned to look down to see what was going on, grabbed another one, came to full draw, and didn't even still get to range him, just came up and broke the shot and got him on that one. So I went through all 5 arrows in my quiver.
Yeah.
So.
Whew. Good thing you brought enough.
Always bring enough ammo.
Right, the more rounds you got,
The more
well, this wasn't about the less aim it take, but the more rounds you got. Yeah.
Arrows
The
in
more
the
rounds you
quiver
got,
don't
keep
deliver.
aiming.
Yeah.
man, we're trying to wrap it there. Then I come up with like 100 more questions.
That was a worthwhile addition, I would say, to the end of this bad boy. But surely there's more that we can talk about bows. I have a feeling it's a very interesting topic today. And outside of this pod venture, we'll probably have to have some more podcast conversations about bows. So we'll have to have everybody tune in with their thoughts on it. But at this point, really, Mark,
probably do that practice Evan was talking about.
I think there's a little practice we got to do. We'll probably go down, maybe shoot a little video of that, working with Evan, shooting a little bit. But other than that, at this point, the only thing we have left to do is go on this hunt. Pray our Subaru makes it down.
And end up finding a big white desert muley right now instead of a Coues.
Yeah.
I'm equal opportunity.
I'm
when
equal
we go
opportunity
down there.
too. I'm actually very excited about the idea of seeing a Coues deer just because I haven't ever seen one in person before. I've seen a muley, but I haven't seen a desert muley, but I've seen a muley. But Evan also got to see the Subaru today on the tour.
Yep.
Thoughts? Think we'll make it?
I think you'll do fine. I think it needs a front guard just to change the look of it a little bit, but
okay, that's fair. Yeah.
So that way, when you find something, you go chasing through, you hit the cactus, and it doesn't, get up into anything.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Future plans. I've got some future plans for maybe like a full exoskeleton on the Sub. Some pretty cool stuff.
I'm not surprised.
I mean, it's got everything but a sink in it, so.
Shoot, we forgot a sink. We've got a couple of days.
We'll go to the hardware store. It's the side by side of enclosed vehicles.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Evan?
Call a Sherman instead of a Panzer.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for joining us on this one, and maybe we'll see you again sometime soon. And
looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll catch everybody next time. Thanks for everybody for listening, as usual, and stay tuned for the rest of this pod venture.
We'll see you in Arizona. Thanks, Evan.
Yep.
Bye.
You write down let off. We can go over let off, high versus lower, and
There's definitely more, I'm sure. Which is good. You never want to feel like you're out of ammo.
Yep.
When it comes to this kind of thing.
No.
What do you think, Marco?
My
What
head's-
were your thoughts? What were your thoughts on what you've done thus far and now what you're gonna do?
So I think I'm really close, but just like I'm not super adept at or comfortable making let me adjust my To me, it's funny. So I equate kind of where I know enough to be dangerous with my bow right now, and I'm comfortable shooting it, and I feel like it's set up really good right now. But as far as me actually touching things on my bow, I'm kind of at where back in the day with a rifle scope, right? You'd get a good 0, and it was like a black magic. Do not touch that.
That is black magic.
And the
That
biggest
made it
thing
shoot
is
that way.
small things, and get confident in that small thing, and then go on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So-
Having a dialable sight was a step for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Well,
and truly, I know a lot of guys want to jump to the single pin, and maybe with the whitetail, I haven't done as much of it where you could do it and get away with it, because I've got a trail at 18 yards, I got a trail at 27. If I set it for 24, I'm good. And I can't do it.
So
But-
I'll say this.
But 3-pin, that's
Money.
that's where it's at.
Well, and actually, so this is a 3-pin on my carbon spider. I got a 4-pin slider, and that's actually the bow that I shot. So I killed a buck in. This is 19 or no? This is 20. So it'd been 2017, and then 2019. I killed bucks here.
Okay.
Both of those deer, if I didn't have a 50-yard pin, they're not dead.
So you want to know a hack for that? 3-pin sight. You have two options: 30, 40, 50, or 25, 40, 50. Depends on where you can get to mentally, what you will allow yourself to do. I think
For me, the even numbers, I was thinking about this earlier because I've done some research on that, and to have a 25-yard sight completely derails me mentally.
Yeah, and I think it will
Or
to
a
a
pin,
lot
I
of
should
guys,
say.
because it's now I got a 15-yard jump from 25 to 40. Yeah, but if you stack a 25 and a 30 or a 20 and a 30 with some of the speeds that bows are producing these days, why?
Right.
We did a hunt. It was a content hunt for our launch video last year. And so we were out shooting, and we were told where we were at 20 yards max. That's your only shot. And so I looked at the ranch manager, and I'm like,
Bro.
I was like, I don't want to change your rules. I said, but do you realize the limitations that could potentially put on our trip? Are you telling me that if I have a buck at 25 yards, you are calling me off? He goes, well, yeah, we don't want you to take that shot. I'm like, okay. I want to know, if I need to recite, do some tweaking, what to do. So I had set up for 20 and 30 at that point on a 3-pin slider. So I was like, I'm just going to leave my 40 in there. That way, visibility-wise, if we, content, it's there. And so...
Well, and let's talk about that scenario we're talking about where something goes and you want to get another arrow in it. Anyway, it's whatever.
Well, so we'd go out in the morning, and then by 9 o'clock, 9:30, we were back at the main lodge. Okay, we need, these are the trees we got available. Let's go get this shot. Let's get this shot. So we're doing content all morning, having lunch, doing another hour or two of content, and then going out in the evening, hunting. Same thing for 4 days.
Yeah.
Well, part of it was just us shooting in the yard, getting shots like that. Well, I'm shooting at 20, and we're shooting spots. And the guy's like, how far can you do that to? How far do you want me to do it to? Like, I mean, one, yes, it's a newer bow. I set it up 4 days ago. I said, so this tape that's on it was literally one I threw on for looks because I knew we weren't going to be shooting past 40, so I have 20, 30, 40. I went to 40 and I shot 5 arrows in a quarter. And he goes, okay, well, let's push your shot distance. I was like, okay, like to what? He goes, well, why are you asking? I said, well, that'll depend on how I want to resight my bow in. Well, why would you want to resight your bow? I said, well, if you tell me 30, then I can go to 25 because the 3 scenarios I've already set in, that covers me out to 30. He goes, well, I don't know if we want to do that. And so we had a conversation. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to shoot at 20 yards with my 20-yard pin and my 30-yard pin. And I said, and there's not going to be 3 inches difference between them. And sure enough, 20's on, and 30 is hitting, like, it was not even 3 1/4 inches high. I was like, now, if I go 25, at 20, I'm going to hit 1 1/4 inches hot.
Yeah.
I have 1.5 inches fixed blade broadhead. That means my bottom blade on the radius is 3/8 of an inch off of my 20-yard spot. And he goes, oh, I never thought about that. Dialed the sight down a little bit, made my 20 my 25. My shot was at 27.2. And used my 25-yard pin. Done.
Boom.
You gonna get a compound yet, Jim?
I gotta get proficient with the trad bow first.
No, it should go the other way.
I know, right?
Fill the freezer, get confident in it, and then go, okay, I want the challenge.
All right, that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Vortex Nation podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hit that subscribe button so you can always stay up to date on the latest happenings over here at the Vortex Nation podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram at Vortex Nation Podcast. Again, everybody, thanks, and happy hunting and shooting. We appreciate it. Have a good one.